Welcome to video number 1 for Unit 6 of the BTEC Nationals from PIC Computing. Unit 6 is entitled Software Design and Development, and in this first video we're going to look at an introduction to VB.NET, because as the title suggests of the unit, you'll be designing software and also getting your hands dirty with coding some software and developing it. So I think a good starting point is to dive straight in and have a good look at VB.NET today. VB.NET, it's a Microsoft tool and programming language for creating Windows and web-based applications. And VB.NET is short for Visual Basic.NET. So VB.NET is in the Visual Basic family of programming language, which has built up through the years from Visual Basic all the way up to Visual Basic 6 and then onto Visual Basic.NET. VB.NET is very different from VB6, so we'll start to have a look at it now. So here is a recent version of VB, and it's Visual Basic 2010 Express, which is a free IDE, integrated development environment. It's free to download and use, so I'll show you later on where to find it so you can install it on your own computer. But for now I'm just going to show you the sort of thing that you can use VB.NET to create. And what I've drawn out here in the IDE is a very basic bit of software. It's a login program. I'm just going to click on this little play button here to run it so you can see what it does. It basically just allows me to put in a username and a password and click in login, and it's telling me I've got an incorrect password. That's because I got the password wrong. I'm just going to correct it to be able to put it as the real password, and it tells me login successful this time. So a very simple program, and how I created the way it looks is by putting on these things like text boxes, buttons, and even a picture using the tools from the toolbox over here on the left hand side. So I used the button and the text box in particular for this application that I've built. So if I was going to draw on a button, I'd just click on that tool, draw it on, and then I can pop over to the properties window on the right hand side to change properties like the text that appears on the button. So if I typed something different and hit enter, we can see it changes on there. So that's where I've used the toolbox and the properties window in conjunction with the form designer to actually draw out how my software looks. But all software needs some programming behind it. So if I double click on my login button, I will find the programming code that is executed when I click on that button in runtime, when I'm running the software. So if I double click on the button, it takes me to the code here that is executed when the button's clicked on. So it's quite a lot of code there, you might think, to do something quite simple. And we'll look at the commands and things more in a future video. I can toggle between my form design and my code using the tabs there, or the buttons here, or even the view menu here. Now, VB is a very helpful programming language. So if I were to bring up a message box as part of my code, and I start typing the msgbox command, you can see it starts to pop up with an autocomplete to try and help me. And then when I try and start to write the command, it also pops up with what are called the parameters to help me get the syntax, the grammar of the command correct. So it's very helpful in that respect. And also if I get something wrong, so if I type the name of the command wrong, it shows me a little blue squiggly line underneath to tell me that I've got it wrong there. But when I run it as well, it's going to tell me that I've got an error. So very helpful. There's also things called debugging tools, which we'll look at in a future video as well, and lots of other things that Visual Basic will do to help speed up the development of your programs. Now, when you make a VB.NET application, you'll have all of your files in a folder. So if I just go to the folder where I keep all of those files. I will have a file that's an SLN file, which is like the container for all the other files. That's short for solution. I'll have a folder with all the other bits and bobs in, including things like my form. This program actually connects to an external file, which is just a CSV, a comma separated values file. If I double click on that, it actually just got my usernames and passwords in there. So the program reads from that to check that usernames and passwords are correct. In the real world, you're more likely to connect up to a full-scale database. So there's an example of that, where Visual Basic will read from and write to the database. And you'll see various bits and bobs from your program in this Solution Explorer at the top right hand corner, such as my form there. And if I was to add more forms, more windows to my project, we'd see those listed down here. Now if you want to find this for yourself and install it, do a simple search in Google for something like VB.NET download. One of the top links will take you to the Microsoft website. At the time of recording, if we just click on download, there's a 2013 version to trial, but we're going to go for the 2012 one at the moment because that's the latest full version out. And if you clicked on that, you'd find either 2012 or 2010. You might also need something called a .NET framework to install as well to get things working. I'm sure you'll get there in the end. I'm just going to close down my login program and go back desktop. The icon for VB might look a bit like something like that. So we load it up. And click on New Project. And you can have a go at this for yourselves. We might try some of these other things in the future, but for now we're just going to stick to Windows Forms applications. It's just taking its time a little bit. There we go. And I'm going to create a very simple program where we might use a button and just quickly set the text property of the button so it says something a bit nicer. Double click on the button to take us to the code for that button. I'm just going to use the MSG box command that you saw me typing before, and I'm just going to put hello world in there, which is what all programmers first use when they're going to create their first program. Notice it put the brackets in for me, and then when I run that, I should be able to click on the little button and it will say world to me. You can use F5 for running the program as well, by the way. Once you've tried that, you might ask your teacher for a little bit of help, and you could try and build the login program to extend your learning a bit more. But that's a basic introduction to VB.NET. I hope you enjoyed it.